In this video, we're going to concentrate on Indian world music. Almost any form of Indian classical music will contain the basic elements of melody, rhythm, and drone. Indian classical music is built up in three layers: a melodic line played on a solo instrument, a rhythmic pattern played on the drums, and a drone played on a stringed instrument. Now, melody is all important, generally improvised against a low drone, the tonic note, and we will see that the tonic note is called sa. The melody is ornamented and decorated using pitch bends, slides, vibrato, and trills. The melody is improvised and is based on a rag with basic rules for each raga. We have no fixed pitch. It is either sung by someone or played by an instrument, such as the sitar or the sarod. Indian music is linear in the sense that it's more concerned about developing the melody line rather than using harmony. The harmony is basic and static, comprising only the drone notes. The ascending scale is different from the descending scale. So the rhythm, the tala, is repetitive and it's played by the tabla drums. And the drone, I have one or two sustained notes consistently played underneath the melody line. This is played by the tambura and is used for intonation, tuning, as well as musical purposes. So you can stop the video here and just go through everything that is written there. Now, the most important instruments that you need to know for the IGCSE Cambridge examination, we have the bansuri flute made of bamboo, and it's mainly used to play the melody. It's blown horizontally and it has holes instead of keys. It looks a lot like a recorder. It's got a wooden sound because of the material that it's made of. Then we have the sarangi. It's a small melodic instrument which is bowed and it has no frets. The instrument is played and sounds similar to the violin. It is said to most resemble the sound of the human voice, the gentle tone of that. It's able to imitate vocal ornaments like the pitch bending or the slides or the glissandos. You have 4 played strings that I see there and 17 sympathetic strings. The most important melodic instrument is the sitar. There I see a picture of the sitar. It has around 24 strings, 2 of which produce a drone. So that's that sustained sound in the background, and 4 to 7 playing the melody. The rest of the strings underneath are sympathetic strings. They only vibrate because they are attached to the main strings that's plucked. And it helps to create a shimmer effect in the sound, that twangy sound. The frets can be adjusted to form the notes of the raga. Players can pull the strings to bend the notes. That's mint. And they can also slide notes, glissando. These embellishments are a main feature of Indian music. I've got 3 common playing techniques, and I've got the mint, where I bend the notes. Tan is rapid scale flourishes, and I have glissandos. And there you can see that the main strings are played by plucking with a wire plectrum, the pick that I see there. Tampura or the tanpura is the accompanying instrument. It looks a lot like the sitar, but it's smaller with only 4 strings and a resonator. It is used as a backing instrument. It gives that characteristic drone to Indian music. It's not a melodic instrument, and it plays very simple and repetitive music. The difference between the tampura, and sometimes spelled tambura, and the sitar can be spotted by looking at the tuning pegs. I only see 4 tuning pegs there because I only have 4 strings. Now, and the sitar, of course, has a tuning peg for each of the 24 strings. Another difference is that you don't see any frets on the tampura. And it's very important that you remember that this is the drone instrument. The next one is the tabla. You see I've got 2 drums there. The tabla decorates the tala. The tala is the rhythmical cycle. The tabla player improvises around the beat of the tala. It's a rhythmical cycle. And the tabla is a pair of 2 small tune drums with contrasting sizes and timbres. The bigger drum played by the left hand is known as the baya, and the smaller drum played by right hand is known as the daya. You will see there's a round black patch on each of the drum, and they call that the doogie, and this helps to create the unique timbre of the instrument. The tabla drums are tuned so that they create pitch as well as rhythm. To help with the learning of the great variety of sounds, this instrument can make bowls, words for the sounds. And bowls for the left hand, they have ki, gig, kick, and cut. And bowls for the right hand, tita, nata. That's not important. It's very important that I know that I can, with my hands and finger strokes, create a very wide variety of sounds. And then I use bowls, words, to help me with that. Just a short summary of the instruments that's important. We have, apart from the tabla, we also have an Indian drum. The bansuri is the wood bamboo flute that is so important. We have the sarangi that you have to know. Another instrument that's not important for this examination is the sarod that you don't need to know. The sitar is there. We have the ezra there as well. And then, of course, you know about the tambura that you have to add. Now, this part is quite important because the two building blocks in Indian music, we have the raga and the tala. So stop it here that you can really read everything that is on this page. The scale, the raga is a scale. More than a scale, it's also a melody. And it's a cross between the scale and the melody, and it's usually containing between 5 to 7 notes. And it should be memorized. We have hundreds of ragas, and every raga has specifications on which notes to use and how to use them. The mood of the raga is linked to the time of day and night, the season or special occasion, and it should be played at and expresses the temperaments and characteristics of the god and goddesses it's named after. Each rag has a particular ascending and descending pattern. Never written down, it's learned by imitating the teacher, memorizing, and of course copying as well. Common techniques used in the melody is pitch bends, glissandos, rapid scales, and ornamentation. The tala is a repeating rhythmical cycle played on the tabla. We've seen the tabla now with the instruments. It's usually between 6 and 16 beats. The beats are grouped into small sections within the pattern. Each beat is called a matra. The matras are grouped together into patterns called vibhaks. And vibhaks is a lot similar to the bars that we have in Western music. The first beat of a cycle is called sam. Okay? It marks the beginning and the ending of improvisations. The tala can also have hand claps at the beginning of each vibhak. And the weaker beat is the empty beat that is only a wave, is known as a kali. And talas are taught, like we saw there with the tabla, with a syllabus sounds called bowls. And there I have an example. So go through that example as well of the tintal. In your examination, they can play a part of the structure and ask you to name the section where this is from. A performance of a rag are often in 3 parts, progressing from a slow alap to a fast yala. Now the alap is the opening section. It's played in 3 time on the sitar or the melodic instrument, and we also have a drone there, and there's no regular pulse and no percussion. So they just introduce the raga and the mood to you. Now the middle section is called the yor. It's slightly faster, and you will have a clear pulse that is introduced. The tabla does not feature here, but if you have a little bit of a drumming there, it plays a very simple pattern. Now in this yor middle section, you can also have a khat or a bandish, and it's played by a sitar, tambura and tabla, and the tabla enters playing the tala. Memorized melody sections players improvise. So if you have a song here, it's also in that part. So, and if you have the tabla there, it does not have a main role. The yala is where I have all my instruments together. It's the fast final section. The tabla player is there. They all improvise using rhythm and melodic patterns. We have a feeling of call and response, and it's virtuosic and decorative, and we have a cascade of scales and intricate rhythms. I like using the Dr. Smith method to just sum up everything about the world music that you have to study. Now, if you think of the D, I see the word drone there, very important, the tambura. I have a dialogue between the different parts with call and response and imitation between the players. The rhythm, the talas, go through that you really know that. The scale is a raga, so that's a combination of a melody and a scale. And I have the word sargam, that's used for naming the sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, the notes of the scale. And the first note is always sa. And in Indian music, I have tones even smaller than a semitone, and I have microtones. We also have a small group of performers, and they sit down and play. And where there is also the structure, alap, the yor, and the yala. The singers perform Indian music, and I have that word Carnatic singing, and a lot of decoration with the pitch bending and the slides and the glissandos. Ornamentation is very important. Melody is all important and it's linear. So harmony is not existing. Harmony is not important. The melody is all important. The instruments that you have to know is the sitar, the tabla, the sarangi, the bansuri, the tampura. The improvisation within a well-defined structure. So they improvise, but it's got a very good structure. The texture, melody and accompaniment, call and response, and I have that drone. Tonality, harmony, I have no fixed pitch to the raga, and I have the drone. 3 elements that I find in Indian music: melody, drone, rhythm. The tradition is oral, and the teaching is by a guru. The student will listen, imitate, and memorize. And the H in Dr. Smith, the harmony, there's no real harmony in Indian classical music. Instead, a drone is played throughout the piece. Now, I've looked at previous question papers, and I found that they usually ask about the texture of the music. So the texture, in this case, it was the start of the extract. So the texture's got in the example that they played, they had a melody and a drone. So that's texture. And then they had to identify the instrument, and the instrument that played there was the bansuri. Which of the following instruments is used by the main instrument? So they had words that they had to select the best option, and in this case it was pitch bending. And then there was a new instrument that entered later on, and that was the tabla. So maybe at the yala section, the new instrument entered. And also they usually ask, where does this music come from? India. They can also ask you, give a reason for your answer. And then this Dr. Smith method is quite important, that you have the D and the R and the S and the M and the I and the T and the H to just summarize everything that you studied with Indian music. I hope that this helps you. You have YouTube. Listen to all the instruments, try and find the alap, the yor, and the yala, listen to the ragas, study the talas, and then you will have a very good idea of Indian music.